Hey guys, how are you all doing today? It's Jordan here from Switchwatch, back again with another review, this time of Kirby Star Allies. Oh yes, thanks to Nintendo UK for providing this review code so I could tell you guys if it's worth your hard-earned cash or not. Now the question of today is very simple: which is your favourite Kirby game? Very simple, I'm sure you have an answer. Let's get on with the review. Kirby Star Allies is a very important title for Nintendo in many respects. For a start, it's not only the Big N's second major title of 2018, but it's also the first brand new game since the first game of the year was a port of Bayonetta 2. After a stellar first year lineup for the Switch filled with tons of top tier games including Mario Kart, Zelda, Splatoon and Super Mario Odyssey, the second year of the Switch's lifespan could give a chance to the well-loved but often secondary characters that Nintendo fans love. In that regard, Kirby is the one leading the way, and honestly, there's no better pink fluff ball to do that. The story of Kirby Star Allies is a simple one, as is often the case with the series. The Kirby universe has been tainted with dark hearts during an attempt to summon a great evil by an unknown sorcerer. Kirby's old foes and allies have all been struck down by these hearts, including King Dedede and Meta Knight. Kirby was lucky, however, and missed it during his snooze. After waking up and curious as to what's gone on, Kirby sets out to put the galaxy right again and stop the catastrophe from happening. Kirby games are well known for their often sublime soundtracks. Indeed, I would happily argue that Rainbow Curse on the Wii U has the best soundtrack of any game on that console, full stop. Kirby Star Allies is in true keeping with the series, with some fantastic tunes to help take your adventure to the next level. Nobody does upbeat, happy-go-lucky adventure quite like the early stages of a Kirby game, only then to explore depths of different styles later on to match themes of the world. It's not afraid to experiment with different moods and feelings, and I can really appreciate that. You can argue that the Kirby series often relies too heavily on remixes of classic songs rather than daring to go original, but in my opinion, they do it so well to update and change them that they always feel fresh and incredibly relatable at the same time. Kirby Star Allies has a top tier soundtrack for me. I especially love the integration of retro tunes in some of the bonus stages, as it really brings back some nostalgic feelings for me. Visually, the game is sublime, as you'd expect from HAL Laboratory, who seem to have made so many Kirby games that they have absolutely perfected the art style. With the power of the Switch, they've really had the chance to add a lot of colour to proceedings, which just pop off the screen. It's got a very distinct style to it, especially with the hazy backgrounds. The amount of depth and scale in the backgrounds is fantastic. Sometimes I stopped playing properly for a few seconds just to admire and fully take in what it showed. Sure, it has the classic Kirby simplicity to it, where it's not a whole lot of complexity to models or assets like platforms and such, but that goes with Kirby's art style. Geometry is very simple, and models and effects close up can not exactly look the best. While it does look gorgeous, there is the issue of how the game is presented. This is the kind of game that really should be 60 frames per second to really make the wonderful art style come alive to its fullness. Sadly, the gameplay in Kirby Star Allies is locked at 30 frames per second, which doesn't hinder anything and it's perfectly fine in the end, but it does stop it reaching its full, wonderful potential. I can see having 4 players at once throughout the game taking a strain on the performance, and in certain circumstances, even the 30 frames per second can falter slightly. It's a small shame that we couldn't have had it in glorious 60 frames per second clarity though. The gameplay is just distilled, adorable platforming in a 2.5D environment. Kirby's usual antics and abilities are present. He's able to puff up his cheeks and keep himself airborne for long periods, and while the series is prone to a new gimmick or two in his games, there's always been one constant theme mechanic that meshes the series together, and those are the copy abilities. Kirby's famous skill to suck up poor enemies, press down to swallow them, and then gain an ability from them is legendary. It's still here of course, and more deep than it's ever been thanks to the ally system. While in Star Allies, it may not exactly be dangerous to go alone. You'll definitely want to take advantage of the ally system, by which you can convert up to 3 enemies to join your forces with you in the level. This is done in the most Kirby way possible. You press the X button to launch a heart at your foe and turn them to your side. From there, they will follow you every step of the way, crushing those who oppose you and helping out with environmental puzzles, especially if it's something to do with their specialty, like fire users lighting the fuse to bombs and cannons. Once part of your marauding team of cuteness, they can either be controlled by the computer or by friends sat on the sofa next to you. This is where your eyes will either light up or slump. Kirby Star Allies is primarily aimed at cooperative play with your friends beside you in chaotic, 4-player action. I went into Kirby Star Allies with the prejudice that it would be a good cooperative game, but a hollow single-player one. This is categorically wrong. I played through the whole game first by myself and loved it. Only after I finished it did I invite a few friends over to play with me. I'm sure it's a lot of fun, fantastic in fact, but I enjoyed playing it by myself just as much. They are two really different experiences and both definitely worth having. Play it alone or with friends, you'll have a good, adorable time either way. The AI of the computer control allies is mostly top notch, almost too good at times, especially in the combat department. They can easily take care of themselves and do plenty of the graft work. There were a couple of times where I was stuck without an attack, and yet they bravely fought off the boss alone. There are times where it can be difficult to get them doing what you want them to do when it comes to ability mixing, which I'll talk about very soon, but it's still remarkably smart at times. I think I'd have more trouble organizing children to do what the AI is capable of doing here. Abilities seem to include a lot of service for fans. They've really reached down the back of the sofa to bring back some forgotten abilities to Star Allies. For example, the Cook copy ability is back after only 2 previous appearances, the last being in Kirby and the Amazing Mirror on the Game Boy Advance. After only 1 mainline appearance in Superstar Saga, way back when, the Yo-Yo copy ability is back in the fall too. Even things like the refrigerator from Kirby 64 are referenced with Kirby's new artist ability. I'm sure everything present in this game will make long-time fans of the series very happy. There are a lot of different abilities and allies in the game, and to top things off, a mixing system is in place, something which has only very rarely occurred in the series, and fans have been crying out for since the concept was first introduced in Kirby 64. Not every ability is mixable, but a large amount of them are. For example, if Kirby has a sword, if he holds his weapon up, many of the supporting casts can add elements to them, maybe fire, ice, wind, or water. These are the basics, but there are other quirky combinations like combining ice with stone ability and shooting a curling stone across the screen. There's a lot of fun using and discovering all of these combinations, and it often gives you a smile when you discover something so adorable. I've talked a little about gimmicks in Kirby games before, and they usually help differentiate one entry from another, and while the allies and mixing ability systems do that, there's always usually one big super gimmick that's added to the gameplay. In Triple Deluxe you had the Hypernova, in Planet Robobot you had the Mech Suit, in Star Allies you have the Friend abilities, which is a title so sickeningly sweet I don't think I can handle it. This is where everyone on the team joins up to form a tool or a weapon. There's the Friend Train, which can charge full steam ahead, even up walls, Friend Bridge, which is used to solve puzzles by guiding a key bearer to a locked door, the gloriously named Friend Circle, in which you pelt down a hill and destroy walls. There's not a lot of them, and I think they could have added a few more in just to give an extra variation in this department. Saying that though, the varied abilities, new and old, the friends abilities, the ally system, as well as the combination potential means that Kirby Star Allies could be one of the most deep and diverse games in the series yet, at least in the mainline games. Sure, it's following a standard gameplay formula set out by Triple Deluxe, Planet Robobot and especially Return to Dreamland, but I feel there's more variety than ever, and it's a real celebration of the Kirby series. The level design is important in any platforming game, especially a full-price Nintendo one. As you'd expect, it pretty much follows previous Kirby games. Levels are divided into smaller sections that Kirby has to traverse through. There's often a lot of verticality to levels thanks to Kirby's ability to go upwards so much. Levels have their own distinct theme to them, whether it be ice, caves, underwater, and so on, and they each have their gimmicks that take advantage of the situation. For example, the volcanic areas will often have molten rocks flying down, the water levels will have currents that you need to master, and so on. I would say that it's not exactly the most creative of games when it comes to level design. It's a bit standard, to be honest. Most of the ingenuity comes from mixing abilities and working together with your allies to solve puzzles and such. Boss battles are a highlight of the game for me. There are a surprising amount present in this game, which is great. You'll fight a myriad of big baddies with plenty of them from games past and new. From the classic wispy words to the trio of the big baddies cronies, there's plenty of variety. They present the biggest challenge of the game, although that's still not much for a seasoned gamer. Young children may need a bit of help in the later ones for sure. What I thought was a great aspect of the bosses was the strengths and weaknesses they possess against different elements. Yes, Wispy Woods will be burned to a crisp if all of your allies are equipped with fire. On the other hand, you may take much longer to take him down if you all have water elements on your weapons. This leads me nicely onto difficulty. Yes, Kirby Star Allies is an easy game, probably too easy. I died a couple of times, once from my own idiocy walking off a cliff, as you do, and then one or two from boss battles where I just wasn't prepped enough, or more than likely was just a little too cocky for my own good. Kirby is and always will be a series primarily aimed at a younger audience, and that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. I didn't find it a challenge, but I still enjoyed playing through the game in a very relaxed way with a smile on my face, no sweat on my brow. Guest Star mode is unlocked after completing the 6-hour story mode. This is almost like a time trial mode, where an eclectic mix of various stages are able to be completed while using characters other than Kirbs himself. You can play some old allies and enemies, and even though on paper it sounds a bit simple, kind of a lazy mode, I actually found it rather compelling, being able to take on stages with different beasts rather than Kirby. While the timing aspect provided a decent incentive, it was the variety of characters that I enjoyed more. Another mode is the Ultimate Choice mode, which is this game's version of a boss rush. You have a difficulty slider akin to the one found in games like Kid Icarus Uprising, which can be set to either really easy, as with the rest of the game, or you can whack it right up to the top, which will give even the most skilled of gamers a tough challenge. From a personal perspective, I'm not usually a boss rush kind of guy. Even if the bosses in the story were actually one of the highlights, I like my breaks between battles. I know some of you will love this mode though, especially testing yourself in the highest difficulties which need to be unlocked. As with most Kirby games, there are 2 minigames to distract you from the main event. They're not exactly great, especially when compared to what HAL have previously produced in the past. Here we have 2 simple and not particularly compelling games called Star Slam Heroes and Chop Champs. The former comprises of a home run contest basically. Hit the meteor as hard and as far as you can by timing your power bar and hit. The other game has a tree that you need to cut down as much as you can in the time. You can switch between which side of the tree to cut, and you will need to in order to avoid enemies. Both games can be used with the motion controls, although I found Chop Champs to be very unresponsive with it. Star Slam Heroes fared much better, but not that I will be playing either ever again after the review. As a full-price retail game, Kirby Star Allies is going against huge competition with the likes of Super Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, and in that regard you must be wondering how could it possibly compete for your cash if you only have money to buy one. Kirby Star Allies comes with the highest price points for a base game on the eShop. Is it worth $60 or £50 of your hard-earned cash? That is a tough one. Of course, these are just digital prices, which I do consider to be a bit high, but the retail copy should be about 20 or 25% less, and I think that's much more reasonable in my opinion. The game isn't the longest, about 5 or 6 hours for a first playthrough and collecting everything. The guest allies will add a couple of more hours to that, as will Ultimate Choice. In all, you're probably going to get about 10 hours for the price that you pay. Replayability? Sure, why not? I wouldn't say no to having a few friends over and playing a game. It's all good fun. Overall, Kirby Star Allies just augments the Nintendo Switch's lineup with yet another excellent feather in its cap. Yes, it may be a simplistic 2.5D platformer, but when it's this sweet, charming and fun, it's something that will brighten up anybody's Switch. The cooperative multiplayer aspect is what really sets it apart from the competition, and playing through with friends is an absolute delight. If you're only into the single player aspect of the game, it may be difficult not to be slightly disheartened by the multiplayer focus, even if it's perfectly playable by yourself. In fact, I was preemptively expecting the single player to be rather hollow, but actually I loved it just as much as I did playing with other people. Hardcore gamers may be put off by the cutesy visuals and the entry level difficulty, but for families with younger children, it's absolutely perfect and you'll have an adorable blast. I'm going to award Kirby Star Allies an 8 out of 10. Okay guys, I hope you've enjoyed this review. Once again, thanks to Nintendo UK for providing this review code. It's a big step for Switch Watch. And also thanks to Juan and James for trusting me, the new guy, to be the one to review our first Nintendo game. As always, Switch Watchers, click that like button and leave a comment below to show Nintendo that we're good for it. If you're new here, then be sure to subscribe for more of the best Nintendo Switch content on YouTube. I've been Jordan from Switch Watch, and I'll see you guys next time.